All right, so welcome in two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and CBS Sports HQ college football analyst Barrett Sallee. B-Mac, I'll start with you here. Alabama, 42-21. Do you want to apologize?
Yes. Hakeem, it's your fault. I blame you.
You blame me?
First week. Yes, it's your fault for allowing me to do that. That was so dumb. I was being so stupid, and you allowed me to do that. And you said, but you wasn't convincing. You well, B-Mac, you went against Alabama and Nick Saban week 1 against Miami and 18 points. It was just real mellow and cool. You need to be more fired up.
I kind of yelled at you. Look, I yelled at you. I said, do you want to make the same mistake twice? And you said, I do want to make the same mistake twice, but I'm not going to be wrong this time. I was forceful when I teed you up. You had a chance.
And you know what? I'm saying it right now. Clip it and save it. I'm not doing it again. I'm not doing it again. I'm not going against Nick Saban and Alabama for the rest of the season. Clip it and save it. Now let's get back to the scheduled program. Outstanding ball game by Nick Saban and his team. A well-coached team. They played with fundamentals, technique, and the physical nature they were able to display, especially in the trenches on the offensive side, was a thing of beauty. They didn't try to trick Mississippi with what they were going to do. They line up and play old school, I'm going to be more physical than the person that's in front of me football. And they did that for 4 quarters. And oddly enough, Mississippi, they were so stubborn. They didn't want to make any adjustments. Consistently lined up in a 3-man front until they got to the goal line. But in between the 20s, a 3-man front. And because of that, Brian Robinson just, claimed his fame to be a All-American in one ball game on a national stage. 171 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. Yes, he probably will be an All-American based on what he did today against Mississippi. So great coaching job by Nick Saban, not so great coaching job by Lane Kiffin and his staff.
Well, B-Mac said he's not going to pick against Alabama ever until next week when they're 24-point favorites over Texas A&M at Kyle Field. Then we'll see if B-Mac's going to stick to his guns. But, to me, look, I'm not going to say that Ole Miss stood much of a chance once, toe met leather. Lane clearly was the biggest fan of Lane coming in when he talked about the popcorn. And for whatever reason, he got away from running the football. The first drive worked. Now, they got stopped inside the 5-yard line on a 4th down, but it was still working. They were working that tempo. They were working that RPO game. Matt Corral was hitting those quick slants. They were making the right decisions. And then for whatever reason, Lane just tried to be the smartest person in the room. And against Nick Saban, that's not how you win football games. I'm totally fine with him going for the first couple of 4th down conversions because you don't win games against Alabama with field goals. Perfectly fine with that. But why veer away? Why move away from what worked on that first drive with Henry Parrish and Jerry Onili working well on the ground, mixing in that tempo, and letting Matt Corral make decisions in the RPO game? It was working. That's not to say it would work at an elite level for them to get the win, but it at least would have given them the chance. But in the end, Lane Kiffin proved that he's the biggest fan of Lane Kiffin, and he's still not as smart as Nick Saban.
I don't know who is as smart as Nick Saban. Maybe you could say his wife, Terry, is as smart as Nick, right? Yeah. That'd be about it. I really don't know who's – I asked Gary Danielson who's going to beat Nick Saban, and you guys have laid it out.
Nick Saban would be the one that beats Nick Saban.
There you go.
He's the only one that can beat him.
You're right. He's the only one because you have to recruit at his level. And really, I don't want to stray too far away from this game, but Kirby Smart doing a heck of a job right now, off to the start they're off to right now, Barrett.
Yeah. You look at team personnel, the 24/7 team talent rankings. Alabama 1, Georgia 2. And there's like a 3-point difference. They're both over 1,000 points. That's how good Kirby Smart has been. But you have to have this talent, and you have to know what to do with it and how to develop it. And take Brian Robinson, for example, right? Brian Robinson came into Alabama. He wasn't the biggest guy, but he developed him physically. Nick Saban got him in that strength and conditioning program and convinced Brian Robinson, hey, dude, you're going to be awesome when you get your chance. Your chance is going to be 3 years from now, but trust us, stick with us, and you're going to be a star. and look what happens. He has a tremendous football game on the biggest stage of his career so far. So that's what Nick Saban's so good at. He understands that players want to get to the NFL and recognize that by being patient within his system, if they put in the work, they're going to get their chance. And those two things, players and player development, are exactly why Nick Saban is where he is, because you just can't stop this train. Georgia might this year, but Alabama right now, it's Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, and then a massive gap to whoever you want to put at number 3.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we will all agree with, that college football is only about 2 teams right now. There's such a large gap between Georgia and whoever is next. And you might want to have Georgia number 1 based on how they just demolished Arkansas. But who's next? These 2 teams are clearly the odds favorites when you talk about championship-like mindsets. You talked about recruiting, Saban, Kirby Smart, right there. You talk about developing, they're both right there. You talk about being able to get guys ready for the National Football League, they're both right there. But the experience still goes to Nick Saban. He coached. He has Kirby on his staff. So he is the master, Kirby is the teacher. And so far, none of the students have been able to beat the master. You know, like I said, Saban has been the master. Every other coach has been the student. The student has yet to catch up to the master. But we got a long way to see if that can happen. But based on what we've seen so far in 4 weeks of play, 5 weeks of play in college football, it's Alabama, Georgia, and everybody else.
B-Mac, before the game, you said one of the keys for Kiffin and company to pull off an upset was that Matt Corral had to be the best quarterback on the field. Clearly, he was not. He didn't play awful, but he wasn't the best quarterback on the field. Got sacked, fumble that led to a touchdown, and he wasn't as high-flying, wasn't able to really make an impact enough in this game to hang with Alabama. In terms of the Heisman Trophy race, did either guy pull ahead in your mind?
I mean, I think going into the ball game, we talked about this pregame that we felt like the favorite was Bryce Young and Matt Corral was a close second. But I think you look at the separation, Bryce created some separation for himself, individually speaking. He played better than Matt Corral, and most importantly, he won the ball game. But now, get this. We get a chance to see Bryce Young again on the national stage next week. See, these are the opportunities. Those are the opportunities that Matt Corral will not have. Every week, because you're playing for Alabama, you have a Heisman-like moment, it's safe to say, especially when you're playing SEC teams. Bryce Young is going to be the SEC in the SEC game of the week again against A&M on the road, and he has an opportunity to create more separation from Matt Corral or whoever else is second or third when you talk about the Heisman conversation. So I think he created a little more separation, but he has more opportunities to create even more separation than one would say when you talk about Matt Corral. Matt Corral won't have the stages that Bryce Young will have.
Yeah, I agree, B-Mac. I'm not willing to write off Matt Corral altogether because he was pretty solid today. He wasn't the issue. The play calling was and the defense was. But you're right. He's not going to get the stage anymore. Bryce Young's going to have that stage. Everybody else is going to have that stage because effectively Ole Miss has a 2-game deficit to Alabama right now. So in terms of winning the SEC West, that's something that would really help Matt Corral in terms of the Heisman chances, and the odds of Alabama losing 2 SEC games from here on out, not very good. So, but with that said, Matt's going to still put up these video game numbers, right? Like, he's not going to sit there and go up against Bama's defense every single week, and he really wasn't that bad against Bama's defense. So I'm not willing to write him off altogether, but it would have to be a situation like 2011 with RG3 when you look around and there really weren't any other legitimate options. The problem now is that there are a lot of legitimate options, but it's 2021. We've seen a lot of chaos in college football.
Speaking of quarterbacks, Arch Manning was in attendance for this game. Barrett, any chance Arch Manning just signs now with Alabama?
He might sign a napkin, but that's not official. He's definitely going to give Nick Saban a commitment here soon, or at least an idea of where he's going. Look, I mean, I understand that Arch Manning has all these offers and he's the hot shot and all this other stuff. Is there really any doubt where he's going to go? Quarterbacks now look at Alabama and see millions and millions and millions of dollars. as a top 5 draft pick. That's what they see. It's Alabama and it's Oklahoma. Those are the 2 colleges. So yeah, Arch Manning, look, he's got a long time to go in terms of National Signing Day and and all that other stuff. But I mean, we should expect Alabama to get every top tier quarterback that it wants at this point.
I mean, you would think with all the hype he's getting, he was a senior. Like you said, Barrett, he's a junior.
Yeah, right.
He has a whole nother football season before he signs his letter of intent to, whatever school he decides to go to. But yeah, I'm right there with you, Barrett. When you talk about getting quarterbacks ready for the NFL, Alabama has been doing it at a high level. And it's safe to say, I don't want to just throw out early expectations, but if he signs with Alabama, he will be replacing another first-round quarterback in Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever his time is done there in Alabama, you look at how he's developing now as a sophomore. I mean, he put up another good year as a junior. He will be a first-rounder. So you talk, I mean, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones. I mean, you can still sprinkle in a little bit of Jalen Hurts. I know he transferred, but he started at Alabama and won a lot of ball games. I mean, 3 guys that are all starting in the National Football League. Granted, Tua's injured, but he's a starter. So, yeah, he has a long way to go, but I can easily see him staying in the SEC and going to Alabama.
Well, for now, Alabama rolls to its 19th straight win. Up next, they visit Texas A&M, who they've won 8 straight games against. They'll look to make it 9 next week on CBS.
What? Hey, Barrett, what did you say that line might be, 24?
24. I'm just throwing it out there right now. I'm saying 24.
All right, and I already said what I said. Y'all can clip it and save it. I don't care if it's 34. I can't go against Nick Saban.
Nope.
So
you cannot.
We have to wait and see what I do.
I don't even think we need to wait and see. You're just going to take the Tide no matter what the number is. It might be 38, and you're going to lay the 38.
Wow, that's not smart.
No, it wouldn't be. But it'd be better than having to apologize. Hey, you don't have to apologize for anything with BMAC on his podcast. All things covered with former LSU star and Vikings corner Patrick Peterson, entertaining and engaging. They talk to some of the biggest names in both the sports and entertainment worlds. All things covered. Download and follow today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.